First and foremost, condolences. Any time a person loses their life, it's tragic, and 17 years old is way too young to die. On the 17th of February 2024, two 17-year-old teenagers had crossed paths on Hackney Road, a highly surveillanced area, after a confrontation that had the elements of gang issues between Holly Bush and fellow courts. The two young men did not back down from each other. Instead, they continued to gold and trash talk. This led to 17-year-old Rio Liu, who was said to be part of the gang fellow courts and nicknamed YD, to pull out his long blade. His victim, 17-year-old Nathan Bawuah, who was also known as Spatcho, had also allegedly pulled out his blade. Now, these two teenagers acted like they were fencing. They had swung and jabbed and parried strikes, and both gangsters tried their best to K each other right there on the Hackney street. The end result would be one winner and one loser. So YD had been bladed, clear evidence by the wound on his face when his mugshot was taken, and Nathan Bawuah had also been bladed but was dying. According to reports, police says that the blading took place on the Hackney street at 11 p.m, and it was classed as a cold assassination, with Rio being the clear aggressor. And Nathan Bawuah was described as a good and well-mannered and popular young man. He had a good heart, whom had values and would not hurt anyone. And that may be true when Nathan was with his family, but also you have to take into account that it's hard for family members to truly grasp the concept of sometimes their children may act differently when they're around their friends. After Nathan had been bladed in the chest/stomach area, Nathan fell to the ground, critical condition, while red dripped continuously. Emergency services were called, and then they rushed to the scene, along with the Metropolitan Police, and Nathan was worked on at the roadside for at least 20 to 30 minutes. It was said that he had told people in his last breath that he did not want to die. But sadly, despite the best work of emergency services, Nathan Bawuah/Spatcho could not be saved, and ultimately he was soon declared dead right there on the Hackney street, just before 11 p.m. Investigators were quickly at the scene in the aftermath of the They sourced CCTV footage from a number of shops, London buses that would have passed through the area, and also door cam footage from houses. When forensics and police officers sifted through the footage, over 1,000 hours worth, Rio Liu had stood out. He had been pictured riding to the scene on his distinctive bike before getting into a heated confrontation with Nathan. Again, both teenagers had squared up to each other, their noses almost touching as they shouted back and forth. Now, Rio was then undone by the fact that he had produced a long blade and then used the same item to blade Nathan in the chest with such force. So much force that his chest was left with a massive hole. Rio had then fled the scene while his rival was laid out there on the ground, and he had managed to avoid police officers for roughly 5 days before he was arrested. Now, when arrested, it was almost as though Rio had expected this, because when he was placed in handcuffs and then taken back to the police station for questioning, Rio Liu answered no comment to all questions and had the face and expression of a person whom was indifferent to the fact that he had committed an on another young man that could look just like him. Rather, Rio came prepared with a pre-written statement which explained all he had done was defend himself, so he should not be punished with this because it was either he was going to die or he had to take someone's life. Now, Rio Liu later pled guilty to being in possession of a blade. After all, he was showed pictures and images and video footage of him holding the blade, so really he couldn't counter that fact. So again, he pled guilty to being in possession of the blade, but the prosecution pushed on with manslaughter, and he was found guilty of it at Snarebrook's Crown Court in November of last year. After the guilty verdict was read out, Rio was warned by the judge at the time that he would be getting a long sentence. Rio was then taken back to jail where he was placed in remand before he would show back up for sentencing, and the judge ultimately sentenced Riolu to life in jail with a minimum term of 12 years. When that sentence was read out, Riolu was absolutely silent. He wasn't in shock, and if he was, his face did not give it away. Regardless of what people say or the reason why these two young men had decided to confront each other, when a life is lost, it's tragic. But the mainstream media portrayed Riolu, who is part of Fellow Courts and was part of Hoxton and Pembury before aligning himself with a different gang. They portrayed the 17-year-old as if he was some sort of out-of-control feral hothead who could not control or curb his anger and was out looking for trouble, all because he had cycled to the Hackney street and then found Nathan. While 17-year-old Nathan Bawuah was portrayed as a civilian whom was in the wrong place at the wrong time and happened to lose his life due to no fault of his own. Even when his picture was taken and showed to the media, it showed Nathan wearing a suit where he could have been in a wedding or a christening, for example. He was portrayed in the media as a very good civilian, and again, that's probably true, but that's not all of it. He had a different life when he was with his friends, away from his family. Both teenagers were involved in gangs. Nathan was said to be part of Holly Street, and they were in over their heads and had actively dissed different sets and gangs for no other reason than being influenced by the glamorization of street life and everything that came with it. They wanted respect from their elders in the area and did what they were told to do, and probably acted out the things that they had seen in drill music because it seemed exciting to an extent. Again, allegedly, both teenagers had been armed with blades before the confrontation. They may not have intended to see each other, but they were prepared to use their blades if they crossed paths with any rival. And it's evident because both men did try their best to K each other on that public street, as if their own lives did not matter, and for what? These were relatively young people that had parents back home whom just wanted them to be safe when they were outside. It was only sheer good fortune and luck that YD had not been the one left dying in the street, scared, hurt, alone. It was just a misfortune that it was Nathan. Again, Riolu was told that he would be jailed for 12 years for manslaughter. So the question is, 1, did the sentence match the crime? And 2, is it really worth carrying a blade for protection when you know the outcome is going to be jail time? Or would it make more sense to not join a gang in the first place? Or rep an area just because it's where you live? What's the point dying for a postcode, and where is the value in that? Now, Nathan's family are also said to be struggling to rebuild their life after knowing that their son is never coming home again. Maybe they can seek comfort in knowing that the person responsible is in jail and they will be there for the next 12 years as a minimum. Stay safe, especially as summer is approaching. Safe.